Hey guys, tonight we descend into the shadowy, echoing halls of the underworld, not to fight demons, not to brave a hero's quest, but to witness the slow, glittering spiral of Hades' very strange obsession, specifically with shiny rocks. Yep, you're here for that. The air is cool and a little damp as you step carefully along a winding basalt path. Mist curls around your ankles. There's the occasional groan in the distance, typical ghost stuff, but nothing's really happening. It's all very calm. You're just a guest. You're fine. Until you hear it, a faint, almost childlike gasp from the dark. Oh. And there he is, Hades, god of the dead, ruler of the realm beneath the roots of the earth. Standing stock still, staring at a random glimmer in the stone wall, he presses in closer. You crane your neck. It's barely a shimmer, maybe mica, but his eyes are wide, his tone reverent. Look at that cleavage pattern. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is. I love reading those. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. At first, you think Hades is just bored. I mean, eternities long. He's surrounded by dead poets, moaning souls, and Cerberus chewing the same bone since 873 BCE. A little sparkle in the wall might just be a rare treat. But no. This moment is the origin story of something much, much shinier. Because the thing about Hades, he's never been the flashy one. Zeus got storms. Poseidon got tridents. Hades got eternal paperwork, death certificates, river routing, the most underfunded of the realms. But shiny rocks, those don't argue, they don't beg, they just shimmer quietly in the dark, needing only light and adoration. It starts with him chipping out that one little flake. He hides it in his robes. Later that night, he's staring at it under a sulfur lamp, whispering, maybe it's tourmaline. Spoiler, it's not. Now, mainstream scholars tell us that ancient Greeks did indeed revere certain stones amber, obsidian, marble, but the mythology didn't fixate on them much. That said, there's one fringe theory floating around in dusty corners of classical studies, that Hades, as god of everything beneath the earth, would naturally become a symbolic steward of minerals, gems, and geological oddities. Historians still argue whether this is supported by temple offerings or just a wild extrapolation from a badly translated vase. You follow him deeper underground, past the river Lethe. He doesn't notice you. He's muttering Latin names to himself that haven't been invented yet. Chrysocolla, dioptase, tanzanite. You suspect he's making them up. Eventually, you arrive at a chamber with surprisingly well-lit walls. There's a mirror system involving lava pools and bronze reflectors. Hades is clearly proud. He gestures like a showman. This is the room of interesting lumps. It's a shelf with 5 tiny rocks, all labeled with shaky handwriting. One just says nice red, another not cursed, I think, and that's where it begins. The collection, the obsession, the very first rocks of what will one day be the largest, weirdest, and most overdramatically curated gem vault in all of mythological history. Now, you may be thinking this sounds suspiciously modern. Would Hades really care about semi-precious stones? Well, fun fact. In Hellenistic times, certain mystery cults believed underground crystals held protective powers. There were rituals involving hematite, said to bring courage, and obsidian, of course, was already a weapon and a mirror. So maybe, just maybe, our underworld host is tapping into ancient mineral magic, or maybe he just thinks they're pretty. As you try to leave the chamber, you bump your knee on something and hear a low growl. Cerberus, the 3-headed dog, is curled in the corner. He's guarding the rock shelf like it's a newborn. You offer him a stick. He doesn't move. Hades smirks. He knows value when he sees it. And so it begins an eternal spiral of glinting distractions, shiny distractions, and one very fixated god of the dead. You shuffle back down the basalt hallway, trying not to make eye contact with Cerberus's 3rd head. It's the twitchy one. Behind you, Hades has started humming. You can't tell if it's a hymn or a gemstone classification mnemonic, but either way, it's unnerving. Somewhere above ground, Olympus is probably hosting a thunderstorm feast or a nymph dance. Meanwhile, deep below, the Lord of the Underworld is polishing a rock he pulled out of the wall with the sleeve of his robe. He's not lonely. Exactly. But there's a particular silence here, the kind only interrupted by distant groans, the trickle of a forgotten river, or Persephone dropping her spoon for dramatic effect. Then one evening, it's hard to say what time it is when the sun never rises. Something changes. Cerberus is lying across the Stygian steps, snoring in surround sound. When Hades receives word from above, there's a new kind of gem on the surface. Sapphire. Not just any rock. This one's blue. Blue. Like frozen lightning. Like Poseidon's tantrums. Like that weird blue rash Hera once had from a cursed grape. Hades can't stop thinking about it. He starts pacing, talking to himself. But why blue? Why would carbon do that? You try to remind him that carbon doesn't even make sapphires. He ignores you. For reference, sapphires are corundum infused with trace amounts of iron and titanium. That's your mainstream historical fact for the section. Do with it what you will. The point is, this knowledge sets something off in Hades. He becomes twitchy, distracted during torment scheduling, mixing up ghost names, accidentally letting Sisyphus have a coffee break. It's not a good look for a god. And then the dreams start. In one, he's wearing a sapphire crown, and the dead weep joyfully at how stunning he looks. In another, he's scuba diving in Tartarus, finding glistening blue orbs among lava eels. Historians still argue whether these so-called sapphire visions were part of a lost Eleusinian mystery ritual, or just Hades eating questionable cave mushrooms. Regardless, the obsession is taking root. You pass by his throne room and notice the throne has changed. Instead of skeletal motifs or iron spikes, it now features a single inlaid blue stone the size of a pomegranate seed. He catches you staring. "Do you like it?" he asks. Like he's testing your taste level. It's extremely rare. I had to unearth 2 minor underrivers just to reach it. You nod. Very slowly. There's a weird flicker in his eye, the kind that says, I will absolutely rearrange the underworld's tectonic plates for a slightly shinier pebble. A few days later, if days mean anything here, he installs a skylight. Yes, a skylight in the underworld. It's really just a bronze mirror angled through a volcanic vent. But still, it filters down one glorious shaft of natural light, right onto the rock shelf. The dead begin noticing. Some of them are curious. Some scoff. One soul who used to be a sculptor in Thebes tries to appraise the collection. Hades sends him to the Cave of Eternal Shrugging for getting too condescending. Cerberus, on the other hand, is thriving. His middle head now wears a small leather satchel, which Hades uses to store particularly emotionally resonant rocks. One is heart-shaped, one is spiral-patterned, one just has a weird energy. And that's the fringe tidbit for this section, according to one 2nd century Alexandrian poem. Certain stones were believed to carry the emotions of their owners. So theoretically, Hades' little collection might be whispering back to him at night, whispering compliments. Eventually, you hear Persephone will be returning soon, and that changes everything. Hades becomes intense, like he needs to prove something. Not with power, not with riches, but with sparkle. You find him measuring stalactites like they're display mounts. He's rearranged the obsidian room to feature mood lighting. He even drafts a letter to Athena asking if she has any recommendations for a good earth-toned cabinet maker with divine discretion. She does not reply. As you tiptoe away from his newly bedazzled throne, you can't help but wonder, is this a mid-eternity crisis? A lonely god's attempt to connect through semi-precious symbolism? Or is Hades just really into rocks now? Either way, the collection is growing, and it's about to get a whole lot weirder. You're lingering near the obsidian columns when Persephone returns. Her arrival is less dramatic than expected. No thunder, no earth tremors, just the scent of pomegranate and the click of sandals on cooled lava. Hades straightens his robe and adjusts a geode like it's a tie pin. "Darling," he says, trying to sound casual. "How was spring?" She raises an eyebrow. "You have a skylight." Skylight is a strong word. he murmurs, nudging a mirror out of her line of sight. It's more of a celestial refraction enhancement. Persephone has seen this look before. She glances at the shelves, the glinting rocks tucked between underworld records and dead philosophers. And then, from the folds of her cloak, she pulls out a translucent hunk of quartz, clear as ice, smooth as patience. Slightly sparkly. I found this near Delphi, she says. Thought you might like it. Time stops. Hades blinks. His voice goes soft. It's magnificent. He doesn't ask what it is. He doesn't care. He's cradling it like a baby made of dreams. Persephone smirks. It's literally just quartz. To be fair, quartz is pretty useful. Historically, it was believed to be water frozen so solid it would never thaw. Some ancients even wore it to ward off heat stroke. Practical and pretty. Hades is doomed. You try to step away quietly, but Persephone catches your sleeve. Has he been reorganizing the underworld? You glance toward the throne, now surrounded by color-coded slabs labeled with names like ambiguous blue and sunset, but make it sad. You nod solemnly. She sighs. Later that night, they eat dinner by the Lethe. It's mostly silent, except for Cerberus, chewing on a chunk of barrel someone mistook for a bone. Persephone leans over, voice low. You know this is just avoidance, right? Hades sips his wine. Avoidance of what? Your job, the soul processing, the river audits. You're 6 scrolls behind. He looks defensive. I'm cultivating an educational resource. A museum. Perhaps, she snorts. It's a shrine. To sparkle. And here's where things get philosophical. Ancient myths rarely give us insight into divine hobbies. But some historians think Persephone's dual-role goddess of spring and queen of the dead might have given her a unique understanding of transformation, growth, cycles. She doesn't judge the rock hoard, not exactly. She just wants it to stop growing across the dining room table. The next morning, or what passes for it underground, Hades gives her a tour. He shows her the quartz, the sapphire shard, the pyrite cube he insists glows when you insult it. She listens, she smiles, and then she makes a request. Show me the first one. He hesitates. The little one, she adds. The shimmer that started all this, and you all walk, yes. You're being dragged along to the original wall, the place where Micah, or maybe Feldspar, caught his eye all those eons ago. Hades stops in front of it and stares, almost reverently. It's not that special, he says, voice quiet. She nudges him. Exactly. Historians still argue whether this moment Persephone gently teasing her husband about his sparkly collection represents affection, disdain, or subtle emotional manipulation. Either way, she pockets the original shimmer and says, I'll hold on to this. To remind you, Hades doesn't object. You return to the throne room, which now smells faintly of mineral oil and regret. Hades resumes polishing. Persephone resumes ruling. And you begin to notice something else. Other gods are watching. A satyr drops off a chunk of tiger's eye with no return address. A minor nymph sends a pebble she swears fell from Helios' chariot. Hermes, of course, has started offering exclusive sourcing. The collection is becoming a thing. Persephone flips through a scroll catalog of underworld laws and mutters. We're going to need a shelving tax. Hades is already drawing up floor plans. You realize you've seen the birth of something eternal, not just a hobby, not just a hoard, but the spark of obsession, and it's about to spiral. The obsidian room used to be a punishment zone. It was cold, echoey, and intentionally uncomfortable. Souls who spoke too loudly in the Elysian fields might find themselves transferred there for reflective time. The wall's pure volcanic glass bounced back every footstep, every whisper, every sigh like a judgmental echo chamber. Now, it's got throw pillows. You're not kidding. Hades has installed low couches, a few torches with custom-colored flames, and what appears to be a water feature made from weeping river stones. The mood is less divine retribution and more welcome to my brooding spa. He's renamed it the Reflection Nook. You try to sit on one of the couches. It's inexplicably damp. Still, he's proud of it. The entire space now serves a new purpose, displaying obsidian, his latest crush in the mineral world. Obsidian, he tells you, eyes gleaming, is the truth stone, cut from fire, cooled by shadows. You nod politely. He doesn't blink. Volcanic glass. he adds reverently, formed when lava cools too fast for crystals to grow. It's impatient. I relate. And there it is. Your mainstream historical fact. Obsidian really is volcanic glass. Ancient civilizations used it for tools, mirrors, and weapons sharp enough to perform delicate surgeries, terrifying enough to decorate Aztec sacrificial altars. You point to a jagged piece shaped like a jawbone. That one! He grins. Found it in a collapsed cave near the Phlegethon tributary. Whispered my name when I touched it. You try to back away slowly, but Cerberus blocks the exit. He's wearing a tiny obsidian charm on one of his collars. It reads, "Ask me about cleavage planes." Now, you might think this entire renovation is just Hades expanding his rock gallery. But something feels different in this room. The walls don't just reflect, they whisper. Tiny fragments of conversation float through the air, snippets of memory. You hear yourself muttering, "Why is this couch moist?" Over and over. Persephone doesn't like this room. She walks in once, lingers a moment, and shudders. There's something wrong with the energy here, she says, brushing goosebumps from her arm. It feels too awake. Which brings us to our fringe tidbit. Some Greek philosophers believed certain stones could store energy, specifically the imprints of emotions or voices. The obsidian room might be echoing more than just footsteps. Hades insists it's just vibe. Dark elegance, he says, lounging across a divan. We rarely honor black sparkle. You're not sure who he is in this context. One of the dead, an ex-oracle from Thessaly, refuses to go near the room now. Says the obsidian tried to show her her real face. Another swears he saw the glass twitch. Hades starts experimenting. He taps the slabs with different bones to see what sounds they make. He discovers one chunk that resonates at the same pitch as a weeping widow. He calls it B3. Historians still argue whether any of these obsidian samples were real artifacts preserved in temples or invented as symbolic stand-ins for unresolved trauma. Either way, Hades is thrilled. He installs labels, backlit labels, handwritten in silver ink. Each piece gets a name, a little backstory. One reads, "Found this during a crisis." Pretty sharp. Like me, the room becomes a sanctuary. For him, at least. But then Persephone asks, very gently, "Are you using this place to not think about everything else?" He stares at the wall, then whispers, "You ever feel like the walls are smarter than you?" You both go quiet. The torches crackle. A shard of obsidian flickers back your own face, but something about your expression seems slightly wrong. The eyes too narrow, the smile too sure. You blink. It's gone. Nope, 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 nope. You thank Hades for the tour and back away, promising to bring him a shiny stick or something later. He waves, already absorbed in polishing a spearhead that might once have belonged to a minor war god. Cerberus sneezes behind you. A puff of soot drifts through the hallway. You step back into the main corridor, oddly relieved to hear the soft wailing of the damned. Obsidian. You think, maybe a little too honest. You think you've seen everything. Now the obsidian shrine, the mislabeled quartz shrine, the shrine of emotionally misunderstood rocks that look suspiciously like driveway gravel. But Hades isn't done. He's got a new idea, a big one, a trade deal. You first hear about it when Hermes sprints through the underworld, dropping a scroll on Hades' desk and shouting, Hephaestus said yes, but he wants weird stuff. Then he's gone again, probably to flirt with a dryad or commit mild fraud. You open the scroll, it's a list. A confusing, slightly charred, very Hephaestus-style list. 1 jar of Lethe water, 3 feathers from a soul that regrets nothing, an echo that loops backward, and 1 cursed spatula for personal reasons. Hades looks intrigued. I can get most of these, he mutters, already sketching out extraction routes across Tartarus. You raise a hand. You know this is for a few volcanic gemstones, right? Like pebbles. He turns slowly. Not pebbles. Vesuvianite, formed in igneous rock near active volcanoes. Earth's anger. Made beautiful. You nod. Yep, that tracks. Now here's your mainstream historical fact. Vesuvianite is real. It was first found on Mount Vesuvius, hence the name, and ancient Romans sometimes carved it into amulets. They didn't do soul trades for it. But hey, creative license. Over the next whatever time is down here, Hades embarks on a bizarre scavenger hunt. You accompany him. You find the jar of lethe water by sneaking into its current with a really long ladle, and a lot of existential dread. The feathers. From a philosopher in the fields of asphodel who swears he lived with no regrets, not even that time he accidentally started a cult. Easy pickings. The echo is harder. You end up in a cave where time folds in on itself like a badly stacked bedsheet. You shout your name, and it answers 3 seconds before you speak. Hades claps like a kid at a shadow puppet show. The cursed spatula. Let's just say it involves an abandoned kitchen in the far reaches of the underworld and a poltergeist who's still angry about seasoning. By the time you deliver everything to Hephaestus, you're exhausted, burned, possibly missing some minor metaphysical components. Hephaestus, covered in ash and sipping what might be molten bronze, grins and drops a sack of what looks like gravel into Hades' hands. But oh, no, these aren't pebbles. They're glowing. Deep red, soft green, fiery orange that seems to move even when you hold your breath. Hades exhales, like he's seen art for the first time. Garnet, he whispers. Peridot. Fire, opal, and here's your fringe tidbit. Some ancient myths suggest Hephaestus's forge produced stones that carried memories of the volcanic eruptions that birthed them. Wearing one was said to protect against both fire and betrayal. Because, sure, why not? Back in the underworld, Hades spends 3 days doing nothing but arranging the new stones by glow temperature. You catch him murmuring sweet nothings to one chunk of garnet, calling it his molten darling. He drafts a letter of thanks to Hephaestus. It's scented with sulfur and sealed with blood-colored wax. You find it a little much. But hey, gift etiquette is a lost art. Persephone eventually wanders in. Why does it smell like brimstone and obsessions in here? Hades beams. Look what I traded for. She holds up a stone. This is glass. Volcanic glass. He corrects. From the forge of the god of flame. It's the real deal. She squints at it. You traded a cursed spatula for this. You step in, and an echo, and some highly questionable feathers. She sighs and sets the stone down gently. You know you can just ask for things, right? You don't always need to make it weird. But Hades isn't listening. He's already sketching a new shelving unit. As you exit the room, you hear him muttering categories. Fiery resonance, glimmer index, risk of awakening ancient regrets. He's happy, which is nice. You think, sort of. You were warned not to open the leftmost vault. There's a little plaque on the obsidian door that reads, in scratchy, flourished handwriting, property of Pluto. Do not organize. Which, of course, makes you open it immediately. The hinges groan like they're holding in laughter. A puff of stale, glitter-laced air hits your face. Then you see it. The closet. Calling it that is generous. It's a glittering void of chaos, a cyclone of shine, a rock avalanche waiting to happen. Crystals, nuggets, fragments, beads, and whole fossils spill from woven baskets and cracked amphorae. Every corner is stacked with unlabeled boxes, some wrapped in ancient toga scraps, others sealed with chewing gum and regret. You step forward and something crunches underfoot. Hopefully not bones. Behind you, Hades appears with a suspiciously calm expression. I see you found the archive. He won't call it a hoard. That would sound unrefined. You glance at the ceiling. There's a hanging stalactite that appears to be dripping melted gold. You decide not to ask. Hades kneels beside a crate labeled simply Weird Ones and pulls out a translucent cube with something dark floating inside. This one hums, he says, only during eclipses. You nod like that's normal. Now, for your mainstream historical fact, ancient Greeks did collect interesting stones, and there's evidence that people believed certain minerals could store divine energy. Temple priests sometimes kept mineral collections for healing rituals. Nothing on this scale, of course. Then he opens the drawer system. Rows upon rows of tiny labeled boxes, meticulously alphabetized. One labeled asterite, another bismuth, uncooperative, and a third, chunk that looks like Zeus's elbow, but isn't. You lean in to read a fourth. It simply says emotional support rock, and has a little smiley face carved into it. Welcome to Pluto's Hoarder Closet, the fringe tidbit. There's a half-crushed papyrus near the corner, referencing a forgotten cult of subterranean illumination. A group of mystics who believed Hades' realm housed not just the dead, but the sleeping light of the earth. Basically, they worshipped rocks. Hades might be their spiritual heir. Persephone walks in halfway through the tour and gasps, "What is this?" Hades straightens. A living archive. A chronogeological library of lost shimmer. She opens a drawer. It's filled entirely with shiny bottle caps. These are not rocks. They're metal fossils. He counters, archaeological confetti. There's a long silence. Then Persephone, very slowly, pulls out a pink, heart-shaped stone with glitter embedded in it. This one says "You Rock" in Latin. Limited edition. Hades says proudly. Minted during the Saturnalia prank wars. Historians still argue whether such objects were real or invented later as parodic offerings. But you're standing next to one. So at this point, anything feels possible. Cerberus sniffs around the lower shelves, sneezes into a box of sulfur crystals, and promptly knocks over 3 geodes and a petrified lyre. It's fine. Nothing is broken that wasn't already broken spiritually. Then Hades finds the notebook. Tucked between 2 baskets of fossilized marbles, it's bound in cracked leather and titled The Glossary of Gloom, Rock Edition. He flips it open, beaming like a child with a new sticker chart. "I started this ages ago," he murmurs. Every piece cataloged. Their quirks, what mood they're best for. Some even get songs. He flips to an entry for chalcanthite, a bright blue stone. Melts in water. Smells like ambition. Good for pity parties. Persephone sits on a crate, holding a small orb that pulses faintly when she blinks. "You know," she says, "this is actually kind of sweet." He blinks. "I mean it. It's obsessive, chaotic, borderline unhealthy. Sure, but sweet." She leans back against a velvet bag of mystery pebbles and adds, "Just maybe rotate the inventory. And stop putting cursed ones next to sentimental ones. The ghost moods are getting weird." He promises to consider it. You both know he won't. As you tiptoe out of the closet, careful not to step on a singing stone shaped like a fish, you glance back. Hades is humming to himself again. One hand on a chunk of moonstone, the other scribbling new labels. The closet door groans shut behind you. A little puff of sparkling dust escaping from the crack. You sneeze. It smells like regret and amethyst. It starts with a rumor. Not a myth. Not a prophecy, just a whisper that drifts into the underworld like pollen on a sigh. Somewhere on Mount Ida, near the burned-out roots of a long-dead olive tree, there might be an opal mine. Hades hears about it through questionable channels. Possibly Hermes. Possibly a nymph with an Etsy shop. You're sitting quietly, trying to scrape glow dust off your sleeves from your last vault expedition, when Hades bursts in, eyes lit like a forge. "I need a disguise." You blink. 4. "I'm going above." Above, as in earth, as in sunlight, as in not his domain. Persephone groans from the corner. "You tried this during the bronze chariot craze. Remember what happened to your ankles?" "It was one goat stampede," he mutters, already sorting through togas like their espionage gear. He decides on a look. Olive farmer chic, dusty robe, straw hat, fake mustache. For some reason, he insists on carrying a bag of lentils. "No one suspects the legume guy," he explains. You follow him against your better judgment through a hidden lava tunnel that opens up, improbably, into a sunlit meadow. And that's your mainstream historical fact. Mount Ida is real, a mountain sacred to both the Cretan and Trojan traditions. Allegedly, where Zeus was raised and where Paris judged the goddesses, it's soaked in myth, olive oil, and badly buried secrets. The hike is awful. Hades complains constantly. "Why does the sky smell like anxiety?" he mutters. Is this humidity or divine insult? You finally reach the site. A collapsed quarry choked with roots and thyme, and something does shimmer under the moss. Tiny flecks, like frozen laughter. Opal, not just any opal. This stuff shifts color when you look at it sideways. Pale green becomes flame. Blue melts into orange. It's like someone gave a rainbow stage fright and it overcompensated. He falls to his knees. She's perfect. That's your fringe tidbit. By the way, in some ancient texts, opals were believed to be formed from lightning trapped in stone. Others said they were the tears of gods who'd watched humanity invent bureaucracy. Hades starts chipping at the wall with a spoon. "I didn't bring a pickaxe," he says, eyes wild. "But this'll do. I'll carve destiny if I have to." You offer him a sensible stick instead. An old man appears behind you, probably a shepherd, possibly a disguised titan. He squints at Hades, looking for something. "Stranger." Hades clears his throat, just appreciating the sediment layers. "Watch out for the goats," the man says before vanishing. You never hear the goats. They arrive like a wave. 20 of them, all hooves, no chill. They barrel across the meadow, bleeding judgment. Hades flails, opals fly. You're knocked into a bush of something mildly poisonous. Hades loses his lentils. One goat eats his fake mustache. By the time the dust settles, he's covered in hoofprints and embarrassment. But he's smiling, because clutched in his muddy hand is a single perfect shard of opal larger than a coin, pulsing with color, and still somehow warm to the touch. Back in the underworld, Persephone raises an eyebrow as you both stumble in like cursed tourists. "Did you anger a mountain spirit again?" "No," Hades says smugly. "I humbled one." He places the opal in a velvet-lined obsidian case and writes on the label, "Mount Ida, never again worth it." You ask if he wants it to clean up before dinner. He holds the opal closer. "Dinner can wait." She's glowing. The next morning, you find him reciting poems to it. Terrible poems. Something about volcanic yearning and spectral light curves. You sigh and fetch the emergency polishing cloths. Because of course there's one. It was bound to happen. You're sipping questionable tea near the river Lethe when the underworld trembles not from rebellion, not from divine war, but from the sound of an argument. Specifically, Hades versus Demeter. You peek into the throne chamber. Demeter's here. Full spring regalia. Her hair tangled with vines that subtly grow when she gets angry. Hades is pacing, holding up a nugget of amber like it's Exhibit A in a trial. "She gave it to me," he insists. "It came from my trees," Demeter snaps. "Do you even know how amber is made?" He hesitates. "Magic." Persephone's stuck between them like a child caught between divorced parents who both brought hummus to the potluck. Now, here's your mainstream historical fact. Amber is fossilized tree resin. In the ancient world, it was prized not only for its golden beauty, but for its supposed powers, protection, healing, even connection to the divine. Trade routes for amber stretched across continents. It was serious business. Demeter knows this. Hades does not care. He waves the nugget around dramatically. It glows. It's warm. It smells faintly like pine and victory. It's plant blood. Demeter says, "She gave it to me. She borrowed it from me. For a centerpiece." The fringe tidbit here. Some ancient texts suggest amber was believed to be the solidified tears of the Heliades sisters of Phaethon after they were turned into poplar trees. In other words, tragic tree juice. Deliciously dramatic. Hades, of course, sees this as further proof of its emotional complexity. "It feels mournful," he says, stroking the nugget like a trapped sob. Demeter crosses her arms. "You're a trapped sob." The shouting escalates. Ghosts start peeking through the floor. Cerberus curls up with both ears over his heads. You quietly place a stack of moss between Demeter and the rock case like a firebreak. Finally, Persephone raises her hand. "We'll settle this." Everyone pauses. "I'll ask the stone," she says. Hades and Demeter blink. You whisper, "She's kidding, right?" She's not. She picks up the amber, still warm from Hades' palm, and closes her eyes. The underworld stills. Even the rivers go quiet. And then, with a very serene, very diplomatic voice, she says, "It belongs to the underworld now." Hades cheers. Demeter snarls. You duck behind a pillar. To avoid a divine tantrum, Persephone offers a trade. You can take back the next 3 decorative seeds Hades accidentally enchants. Demeter grumbles, but accepts. The crisis is averted. Sort of. Later, you find the amber locked in a new case labeled Amber. Botanically disputed, spiritually confirmed. You sigh, then notice the small, sticky note below it. Do not bring up Demeter in its presence. May absorb yelling. The following days are quiet. Too quiet. Hades stops talking as much. He just reorganizes his stones, puts the amber in 3 different locations before settling on a shelf lined with dried moss. Persephone watches him one evening and murmurs, "It's not about the rock." He nods. I know. You almost feel sorry for him. The glow of obsession can sometimes cast shadows. Shadows shaped like unspoken things, like loneliness, or rejection, or being told that something doesn't belong to you, even when it shines for you. But then he uncorks a new label pen and mutters, I wonder if tree blood fluoresces. Nope, he's fine. Mostly, you should have known Hermes would get involved. He's the god of travel, trade, lies, and hey, don't tell anyone I gave you this, which makes him the perfect read. Worst partner for Hades' growing rock empire. It starts innocently. You find a small, suspiciously modern-looking box near Hades' throne labeled From H. Inside, a handful of smooth, dark stones with metallic veins and one glowing, impossibly spherical lump that hums if you squint. What is this? You ask, immediately regretting it. Hades doesn't look up from his catalog. Meteorites. From where? Space. I assume Hermes didn't elaborate. Of course he didn't. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Ancient Greeks were aware of meteorites. Some temples, like the one at Delphi, housed what were believed to be stones fallen from the heavens called betyls. They were venerated as gifts from the gods, sometimes even mistaken for gods. Hades is ecstatic. He spreads the stones out on black velvet and whispers like he's proposing marriage. They've never touched Earth until now. Pure cosmic energy, untouched by soil. I love them. The glowing one flickers, and he squeals. Actually squeals. You raise a brow. How exactly did Hermes get these? Hades shrugs. He said a friend of a muse found them in a crater shaped like a goat, right? Totally normal celestial sourcing. The fringe tidbit here. Some fringe mythologists believe meteorites were used in obscure rituals for contacting chthonic deities, specifically when sacrifices were too messy or budgets too tight. So yes, somewhere, someone thought tossing space rocks at the ground summoned ghosts, which, honestly, sounds like something Hermes would encourage. That night, you wake up to the soft sound of chanting. You follow it to the throne room, where Hades has arranged the meteorites in a perfect circle and is slowly circling them. Barefoot, muttering what might be an ancient dialect or a made-up rock poem. Persephone stands nearby, arms crossed. You're not summoning an astral worm again, are you? No, he says brightly. I'm communing with what? The quiet between stars. You look to Persephone. Has he been sleeping? She sighs, only on pillows filled with mica flakes. The next day, Hermes shows up again. You can always tell it's him. He knocks, but doesn't wait. He appears in a shimmer of motion blur, flips a coin, and tosses another small pouch into Hades' lap. Limited run, he says, only available on Jupiter. He's gone before anyone can ask questions. Inside, a chunk of something so black it looks like a hole in reality. No light, no shadow, just void. Hades almost faints. Is this obsidian? You whisper. No, he says in awe. It's space glass. He names it Eventide's Eye and builds a pedestal for it shaped like an hourglass tipped sideways. Persephone gives it one glance and says, that's cursed. It's enigmatic. Hades insists. Historians still argue whether gods in ancient myths ever truly feared celestial objects, or simply saw them as oddities. But here, now, watching Hades polish a void rock while muttering planetary names in alphabetical order, you realize this isn't collection, it's communion. He's not just admiring sparkle anymore, he's speaking to it. You wonder what it says back. Later, he catches you staring and says, almost shyly, it's comforting. Space rocks, they don't belong anywhere. Like me, sometimes you don't know what to say to that, so you just nod. And maybe, for the first time, you understand why this all matters so much to him. Not the shimmer, not the science, but the silence. The kind only shiny things can hold without breaking. You didn't think it could happen, but it did. Hades has opened a museum, sort of. He calls it the Underworld Archive of Reflective Mineralogical Importance. You try abbreviating that into UARMY, but he insists on calling it the Gallery of Gleam. The name keeps changing depending on his mood, or the moon phase, or how recently he's touched labradorite. It's less of a museum and more of a cavern that used to house a lava prison, but now features carefully curated, mood-lit displays of rocks arranged by emotional impact. The first thing you see upon entering is a sign, Touch nothing. Everything here has feelings. And honestly, it tracks. Hades walks you through like an overexcited docent. Here's our hall of regretful sparkles. That one, he points, is a garnet that witnessed 3 unrequited crushes. Very brave. Each stone has a little card. Some are dignified. Obsidian volcanic glass, 800 BCE. Knows too much. Ask before addressing. Moonstone. Gift from a nymph who cried exactly once. Others are less so. Quartz blob. Just a guy. This one bit someone. Don't ask. Mainstream historical fact time. There were indeed stone collections in the ancient world. Some temples even functioned like museums, where votive offerings and curious artifacts were arranged for viewing. But none had Hades-style commentary like glows when insulted or cursed, but cute. You round the corner into the centerpiece exhibit. A low-lit space with a slow-turning pedestal. On it, the opal from Mount Ida. It now has its own soundtrack. Hades composed it himself. It's mostly harp and occasional whispering. Persephone walks in, arms crossed, and surveys the scene. Do these stones actually do anything? She asks. Hades beams. They inspire reflection, introspection. No. She glances at the meteorite hug zone, where ghostly projections swirl around a few space rocks arranged in a star pattern. You made a planetarium, she says. I made a feeling. Hades replies. You peek into a side alcove labeled experimental shimmer. Inside are all the rejects. Gravel, fake jewels from a dryad gift shop, and a rock that looks suspiciously like an old potato. One is labeled Fool's Gold, but not emotionally. Fringe tidbit for this section. Some ancient necromancers believed certain stones could serve as anchors for souls. Not traps, more like invitations. A safe place for a spirit to rest or revisit. Hades hasn't said it outright, but you notice how often he pauses by certain stones, touches them gently, murmurs names. You don't ask. The Gallery of Gleam opens to the public on a Thursday. The first visitors are the souls of failed poets and retired oracles. One weeps in front of a smoky quartz and whispers, "That's what my heartbreak looked like." Another asks if the glow level of a specific garnet correlates to past life regrets. Hades says yes, though you suspect he just likes saying yes when people sound smart. Persephone starts hosting tours sarcastic, deeply informative tours. She's surprisingly good at it. And here, she says, gesturing to a flat disk of hematite, we have a stone that reflects everything except accountability. Hades laughs from across the room. He's rearranging labels by aesthetic aura. Later, the museum gets its first complaint. A soul accuses one of the geodes of judging them, claims it made a face. Hades investigates and discovers the geode does seem to squint when lied to. He gives it a ribbon and a raise. You finish the day in the gift shop, yes? There's a gift shop. It's mostly shiny pebbles, some mood candles, and a line of postcards with captions like "Wish you were dead." Just kidding. Come visit. You pick up a magnet shaped like a thunder egg and wonder if this was the plan all along. Probably not. But somehow, it works. This isn't just a collection anymore. It's a museum of feelings. A place where the shiny things aren't just seen, they're heard. Even if they don't talk. Even if they just shimmer and hum, and hold a little space for the god who built them. The dead are starting to notice. Not in the usual way, no hauntings, no full-scale rebellions, but in the soft, passive-aggressive way that only an eternity of silent wandering can teach. You hear it first from a soul named Antheos, who used to be a stonemason in Thebes. He stands beside a glittering amethyst display in the new gallery and mutters, "Nice to see the afterlife turned into a glitter cave. Wonder if we still do judgment or just interior design now." The thing is, he's not wrong. Since the Gallery of Gleam opened, everything's gotten fancier. The asphodel fields now have walking paths lined with polished river stones. The Elysian fields are experimenting with bioluminescent gravel. And the graves, Hades has started upgrading them. You pass one tombstone that's been swapped out for a polished slab of labradorite. catching the light like oil on water. Another has a raw chunk of citrine embedded in the top with the inscription, "Died regrettably." Looks good doing it. Mainstream historical fact. Grave markers in ancient Greece varied from simple ceramic markers to elaborate marble sculptures. But there's no evidence they ever glowed or played ambient harp music when you walked by. Yet here, in the underworld, things are different now. The souls begin murmuring. At first, it's subtle. A few whispers, a slight hesitation at the gallery entrance. But then someone, probably a philosopher, starts a petition. You find it pinned to a stalactite. We, the respectfully deceased, request fewer shiny distractions and more structural clarity, especially concerning identity, judgment, and whatever happened to the river schedule. Hades reads it over breakfast, sipping volcanic espresso from a mug that says, "Sparkle responsibly." They're just adjusting, he says. Persephone squints. You replaced a death ledger with a color-coded crystal grid. It's more feeling-based now. She doesn't argue. She just schedules an emergency soul forum. The meeting is spirited. One soul says their gravestone now reflects their worst haircut. Another complains that their resting place is too emotionally resonant, and now they cry every time a breeze hits it. A bard dramatically accuses the rose quartz, near his plot of stealing his essence. Hades listens. He even takes notes. Then he unveils a solution, customizable shimmer tears. Each soul can now choose their sparkle level from subtle twilight glint to full disco lament. You help distribute the order forms? One ghost draws a flower on theirs. One draws a middle finger. Asphodel remains skeptical. The fields of punishment outright refuse. But in Elysium, the glitter frenzy explodes. It starts with tasteful moonstone edging. Then someone adds a smoky quartz bench. Then someone else embeds LED-like effects into a gravel path using enchanted hematite. By week's end, you've got an entire hillside that looks like it was designed by a celestial interior decorator with a deep Pinterest addiction. And it's weirdly peaceful. Fringe tidbit time. Some scholars believe ancient beliefs about the afterlife evolved not just from spiritual philosophy, but from environmental aesthetics, how places felt to the living, shadows, caves, earth textures. That emotional association may have birthed entire mythologies. You think about that as you walk through the glitter-lit groves and remember, for the dead, beauty might just be the closest thing left to time. Later that night, Hades paces in front of the gallery. Did I ruin it? He asks. You tilt your head. Ruin what? The stillness, the dignity. You think about it. No, you say finally. You just gave it color. He smiles, barely, but it's there. Then Cerberus trots up with a geode in his mouth and accidentally triggers the harp music in the meteorite exhibit again. The dead sigh, but no one leaves. You hear the scream before you see the clutter. A long, echoing wail, followed by the crash of something ceramic and unnecessarily expensive. You run well, power walk to the vault of sentimental geology, where you find Hades on his knees, surrounded by broken shelves, scattered glitter, and one very empty pedestal. Where is it? He gasps, clutching at the air like a Victorian widow. Where is my pyrite? Persephone stands nearby with her arms crossed, a suspiciously innocent look on her face. Behind her, a basket labeled donation, sparkle that no longer sparks joy. You already know what happened. Let me explain, she says, clearly not planning to let him interrupt. She gestures toward the mess. You had 14 different samples of pyrite. 14. One of them was shaped like a goose. That goose understood me, Hades says, still on the floor. Persephone continues calmly. So I decluttered. I was gentle. I even made a chart. It's called the Rock Relevance Matrix. You glance at the chart. One axis is labeled glow frequency, the other, emotional catharsis. Several pebbles are circled with frowny faces. This, dear listener, is what happens when Marie Kondo meets the Lord of the Dead. Now, here's your mainstream historical fact. Ancient Greeks were no strangers to symbolic order. They arranged household shrines with great care, keeping only items that connected them to gods or ancestors. But even they might raise a skeptical brow at someone crying over a glitter rock labeled friend-shaped sadness cube. Hades picks up a chunk of rose quartz and sniffs it like it betrayed him. You recycled my collection. I refined it. Persephone corrects, and I kept the one with your name scratched into it. He perks up slightly. Really? She hands it over. A humble shard of pyrite, etched in messy divine handwriting. Hades, do not polish. It's perfect already. He clutches it like a baby bird, but the damage is done. He's rattled. You help clean up, carefully sorting the salvage stones into piles labeled keep, questionable, and emotionally radioactive. Cerberus keeps finding missing rocks and depositing them at Hades' feet, his tails wagging proudly. One is just a piece of petrified bark. Hades gasps like it's the lost crown of Atlantis. Persephone leans over to you and mutters, "He's got trauma stones." You nod. Deep layers. Fringe tidbit. Some historians believe early hoarding behaviors, especially involving natural objects, had ritual roots. Stones weren't just decorative, they were memory tokens, magical stand-ins, even anxiety talismans, what Hades calls archiving. Persephone now calls emotional sediment. She starts placing little notes next to his favorites. This one helped you after the Hermes incident. This soot chunk is from the goat stampede. Don't forget you survived it. Opal, your first spark, still glowing. It's sweet, in a deeply unhinged, underworld way. By evening, things have settled. Hades has started reorganizing not by scientific classification, not even by sparkle rating, but by feeling. There's now a shelf labeled "When I Thought I Was Alone But Wasn't." Another, "Forgiveness in Mineral Form." And tucked in a tiny alcove, lit by a single flame, lost but not gone. You find Persephone outside the gallery later, staring up at the reflected lava light. You did a good thing. You say? She shrugs. I don't mind the sparkle. I just don't want him to disappear inside it. You both watch as Hades walks by, holding the goose-shaped pyrite again. He's humming, off-key, but soft. Grief is a strange collector. It hoards moments, fossilizes them. But love arranges the shelves. You're sitting near the lava fountain. Don't ask when someone knocks on the underworld gate. An actual knock, not a ghost breeze, not a spectral groan. A polite, rhythmic, mortal knuckle-to-stone knock. Hades opens it himself, which is a rare honor usually reserved for cursed messengers or Persephone's edible arrangements from Demeter. Standing there is a mortal, tall, nervous, glasses askew, hair like a forgotten feather duster. He holds a notebook, a satchel, and the kind of scholarly stare that says, "I haven't slept since the last solstice. I'm Oren." He says, "From Corinth, I teach geology." I think Hades blinks. You think, well, Oran says, clutching his satchel, "I thought this was a dream. I was studying tectonic plates and then fell down a hill, and now I'm here. And I smell brimstone. And that rock over there is humming at me, so I'm either dead or deeply hallucinating. You're invited." Hades says, clearly proud, "to consult." You raise an eyebrow. You invited a geologist. Hades beams. A mortal perspective. I need validation. Mainstream historical fact time. Ancient Greece did have early scholars who observed and theorized about the composition of the Earth. While they didn't use modern terms like plate tectonics, they debated the origins of gems, the causes of earthquakes, and the metaphysical properties of minerals. Some even classified stones by color, texture, or believe it or not vibes. Orin is overwhelmed. Hades ushers him into the gallery of gleam like a proud parent at a science fair. That's my opal. It survived a goat stampede. And this, he gestures dramatically, is Eventide's eye. Possibly cursed. Emotionally essential. Oran nods, taking frantic notes. This one fluoresces under divine scrutiny. Hades continues, tapping a piece of chalcedony. And this one reminds me of failure. In a comforting way, Oran whispers, "Do you label all your emotions in rock form?" "Yes," Hades says. "Don't you?" Persephone stops by with tea and a faintly sarcastic smile. Careful, he's going to try and convince you the crystals are sentient, they're emotionally responsive. Hades corrects. Fringe tidbit for this section, there's a half-forgotten sect known as the Lithomancers, mentioned in obscure Hellenistic texts, who claim to read in the future by dropping polished stones into sacred pools and interpreting the ripples. They believed each stone had a voice. Most mainstream historians dismiss them. Hades does not. Oren, bless him, leans into the chaos. He sets up a field desk in the obsidian wing and starts taking interviews with various stones. You find him asking a piece of smoky quartz, "What was your formative trauma?" The quartz glows faintly. Later that week, Hades hosts a symposium. You think it's just an excuse to wear his new toga, which has a glittery trim labeled lava thread. Don't ask. Souls gather in the amphitheater. Oron presents his findings, nervously pushing his glasses up every few seconds. He clicks his fingers. A crystal lights up. He clicks again. It changes color. Some of these stones, he says, are reacting to mood, not temperature, not light, mood. Hades grins. Told you. Oron continues. There's also a resonance pattern. Certain stones vibrate when paired with specific souls. It's musical, structured. You glance at Persephone. Is he saying we're in a haunted xylophone? She shrugs. If the melody fits, the final demonstration is wild. Oron places 5 different stones in a circle, places his hand on one, and a soft tone echoes through the gallery. Not loud, more like a hum you feel in your teeth. Several souls start weeping. This one, Oron says quietly, remembers. Nobody claps, but everybody feels. Later that night, you find Oron packing up. He has a crystal in his pocket, a new wrinkle in his brow, and the 1,000-yard stare of a man who's been spiritually exfoliated. You okay? You ask. He pauses. I thought I was studying rocks, but they were studying me. Then he smiles faintly. Tell Hades, thank you. And with that, he walks back through the Gate of Souls and vanishes into the mortal world. Hades stands in silence for a long while. Then he picks up the smoky quartz and holds it like a goodbye. You swear it glows. Just a little. It starts with a sparkle. No, not the poetic kind. Not a gentle gleam or soft shimmer. A blinding, absurdly confident, Vegas in the afterlife kind of sparkle. You walk into the gallery of gleam and find Hades frozen, one hand hovering dramatically over a new addition to the collection. It's gold. It's shiny. It's absurdly lumpy. It looks like someone tried to sculpt a potato out of glitter and misplaced ambition. He whispers, it's magnificent. You lean closer. Oh no. You say, that's fool's gold. Persephone rounds the corner just in time to hear it. Again, here's your mainstream historical fact. Fool's gold, also known as pyrite, was often mistaken for real gold due to its shiny appearance. It's been tricking treasure hunters, pirates, and overconfident kings since antiquity. But Hades, he's in love. This one has personality, he says, holding it like a newborn. It's bold. It doesn't pretend to be gold. It is gold in its own truth. Persephone pinches the bridge of her nose. You said that about a glittery chunk of slag last month. Hades spins around. This is different. This one winked at me. Was it light reflection? No. Emotional recognition. You glance at the label he's scrawled under it. Fool's gold. Proof that belief matters more than accuracy. A philosopher's ghost passes by and mutters, that explains my entire career. Now, for your fringe tidbit. In certain ancient magical traditions, pyrite was used not for wealth but for warding off deception. Ironically, people carried fool's gold to protect themselves from liars. Historians still argue whether this is beautiful irony or just poor mineral branding. Over the next few days, the fool's gold becomes a phenomenon. Hades gives it a pedestal near the front of the gallery. He surrounds it with ambient lighting and a poem that reads, you sparkle like truth in a world that measures worth by currency, not conviction. You ask him gently if he's doing okay. He shrugs. It's just nice to be seen. Meanwhile, the other stones are starting to react. You swear the amethysts are dimmer. The sapphires feel colder. Even the opal from Mount Ida flickers with what might be resentment. You find a note tucked under its case that says, I used to be enough. Cerberus growls when he walks by the fool's gold. One of his heads refuses to look at it. Persephone tries to intervene. It's a fake? Hades. Pretty. Sure. But it's literally named after being wrong. But it shines, he says, almost defensively. It makes me feel rich. It believes in itself. Do you believe in it? She asks quietly. And that hits harder than expected. He doesn't answer. The next morning, the gold is gone. The pedestal stands empty. The lighting's dimmed. A small sign reads, on personal retreat. Please respect its journey. You find Hades sitting by the river Lethe, skipping tiny flat stones across the black surface. Each skip leaves a ripple of light, faint but oddly steady. I knew it was fake. He says softly. You don't reply. Just sit beside him. He tosses another stone, but I wanted it to be real, just for a little while. I wanted to believe something could shine just because I needed it to. Silence. Then, softly, you say, maybe it did. Because here's the thing about fool's gold. It might not be valuable in the traditional sense. It might not buy kingdoms or impress demigods. But sometimes, when the world feels heavy, and the afterlife even heavier, a sparkle, any sparkle, feels like enough. That night, he returns to the gallery. He finds a dusty corner, nothing fancy, and places the fool's gold there. No pedestal, no lights, just a label that says, let it shine, even if you know better. And somehow, the gallery feels warmer again. The underworld feels full, not crowded, not noisy, but complete in a way that's hard to name. You stroll the gallery one more time, past velvet shelves of volcanic glass, past the opal on its pedestal, past the meteorites, humming softly in their space-tempered silence. Each stone, each fragment, each reflective shard feels like a page in a quiet, shimmering autobiography. Hades is sitting cross-legged on the floor, not the throne, not his dramatic gleaming chaise, just the floor. There's dust on his robe and a small piece of citrine in his palm. It's nothing special, not rare, not radiant, just warm. Do you think it ever ends? He asks, not looking at you. You tilt your head. The collection. He shakes his head. The need, the want, the ache that makes you look for light in cold places. You sit beside him. The floor is cool, and the glow from the nearby labradorite shelf casts shifting blue ripples on the ceiling. I don't think it ends. You say, I think it changes. He nods, slowly, as if turning that thought over like a river stone. Persephone walks in. She doesn't say anything. She just crouches next to him, places a polished agate beside his citrine, and leans her head on his shoulder. 3 words, unspoken. I'm here too. Mainstream, historical fact. The ancient Greeks believed in katabasis, the journey downward, into death, into dreams, into self. Hades, god of the underworld, wasn't a villain. He was a threshold, a mirror, a keeper of what's buried and what's precious. And here he is now, keeper of stones, each one a tiny echo of something lost and something found. You walk through the gallery one last time. No tour groups, no harp music, just quiet. You pass the I missed you shelf. The chunk of mica labeled hope, but subtle. The meteorite still pulsing like a held breath. And finally, the fool's gold. It's sitting calmly in its corner. No spotlight, no audience. Still trying to shine. It doesn't need to fool anyone now. It just is your fringe tidbit. Some believe stones remember, not just vibrations, but intentions. That holding one long enough imprints something deep, a quiet bond between being and believing. You believe that now, as you reach the exit. You glance back. Hades is still on the floor. His fingers are tracing circles in the dust, arranging pebbles into quiet constellations. Cerberus lies nearby, his tails twitching in a dream. Persephone stands in the archway. She doesn't stop you. She just smiles. Don't forget, she says softly, sometimes the heaviest thing to carry is light. And the door closes behind you. The cavern begins to dim, one by one. The torches in the gallery of gleam soften to a glow. The stones fall quiet. Even the meteorites hum a little slower. You're walking slower now, too. Your steps feel padded, like the ground itself wants you to rest. The air is still, but not stale, just heavy with time, with memory, with the kind of silence that wraps around you like a warm, weighted blanket. Somewhere, water drips. Somewhere else, a stone turns over by itself. You don't rush. This place, the gleam, the gloom, the quiet hunger for beauty, it isn't going anywhere. It's etched into eternity, flickering gently beneath the feet of the gods. And you've seen it. You've touched it. You've watched a lonely ruler dig meaning from darkness and place it on a shelf, not for display, not for glory, but simply to say, I found this, I saw this, I remember. So maybe tonight, you'll close your eyes and see the shimmer of citron behind your eyelids, or feel the smooth chill of obsidian in your palm, or just breathe a little slower, knowing that not everything that glows demands to be gold. Some things shine because we want them to. Some things shine because we need them to. So sleep now. Let the light of forgotten stones curl around your breath. Let the hush of mineral time pull you downward, gently. Let yourself settle. You don't have to collect anything tonight. Just rest. You've carried enough shimmer for one dream.